Hi, it's Dr. Rebecca Barrett Fox, your professor for Sociology of Gender. Gender socialization, as you'll recall from last week, happens through a variety of institutions: family, school, friends, religion, popular culture, and more. In all of these places, a combination of explicit and implicit socialization works on each of us to teach us what our culture wants us to know: how to behave, what to value, what to think of as quote unquote normal. The goal of socialization is for us to internalize these behaviors, norms, and values, so we don't even have to think about confronting our culture. In fact, not confronting it isn't something we'd even consider. So sometimes, before adulthood, our parents hope we stop sitting in unladylike ways, behaving in ways that do not behoove a young lady, and speaking in ways that are unbecoming to a young lady, if we're a young lady, I mean. Or if we're a boy, our society hopes we'll quickly learn to, quote, act like a man. If we're gender non-binary, and don't panic if you don't know what that term means, we'll get to it, well then we're already confounding the rules of gender socialization. This socialization happens all around us all the time, and most of the time. By the time we're adults, we get the hang of it, and we follow the gender rules, both spoken and unspoken. Most of us conform most of the time. If that sounds like a great way to organize a society, you're probably a structural functionalist, otherwise known as a functionalist, also known as an order theorist. Functionalists think of society as organized for optimal functioning, and socialization is the process by which people learn how to function. So for functionalists, dividing the world into gender lines is a smart way to organize a society so that it functions smoothly. Traditionally, this has meant that our social world, at least in the West, was divided so that men were in charge of the public sphere and women were in charge of the private. Men got politics, paid employment, and policy. Women got home, family, and faith, but not leadership in religious organizations. Every need was met because everyone knew, according to their gender, what they needed to do and where they belonged. Now, if that sounds terrible to you, you're probably a conflict theorist. Conflict theorists think that the divisions in society aren't there to make it function smoothly, but to preserve the power of the people who benefit from the inequality that these divisions produce. In this view, a woman's place is in the home is an organizational strategy to ensure that children are cared for, but a way to preserve political power for men and get them off the hook of doing the hard work of raising children. Men entering the world of paid employment isn't a strategy for guaranteeing that every family has a stable financial base, but instead a way of ensuring that men, and not women, have access to money, and with that, the power that having money that brings over their partners. Well, order theory and conflict theory are macro theories of sociology, and they apply to more than just gender. Like all macro theories, they focus on the ways that structures work in society. The big difference between them is that order theory argues that structures, like gender roles, are good for society. Conflict theory, in contrast, says that any apparent harmony or agreement we have about gender is just the result of coercion. In reality, people of all genders are harmed by rigid organization of the world into gender roles, though it's especially bad for women, who have measurably less power in the world than men, in terms of political power, money, the ability to make laws, etc. Most scholars of gender are conflict theorists, not functionalists. A third important theory takes an entirely different approach. Symbolic interactionism is a micro-theory, focusing on groups as small as dyads, that is, pairs. Symbolic interactionism says that we create gender by the ways in which we interact. For example, in their speech patterns, women tend to vocalize even statements as questions, raising their voices at the end of a sentence as if to invite disagreement rather than to deliver a directive. Women are also less likely to deliver directives, that is, to give orders or commands, even when they have the authority to do so, and are more likely to frame commands as suggestions. They're less likely to interrupt and more likely to tolerate interruptions. When women don't do these things, we may read them as bossy or rude, even though if men interrupt or deliver commands, we interpret them as confident or people with good leadership skills. This pattern is so strong that it's become kind of a joke. I'll show it to you in this webcomic called 9 Threatening Leadership Strategies for Women. I don't include them all here, but you can easily find them online. And the link to this is embedded in the transcript for this lecture. So here's the first one. When women are setting a deadline, it appears threatening, as we see on the left, and she says something like, "This has to be done by Monday." A non-threatening approach would be to say, "What do you think about getting this done by Monday?" So we see between a statement and a question. What do you think? Inviting an opinion. And we see the man's face here when he's given an order. His face when he's asked for his opinion. If a woman is sharing her ideas in public, like in a business or professional setting, sounds threatening to say, "I have an idea." A non-threatening way is saying, "I'm just thinking out loud here." Right? She can't say make it seem like she's thought about it too much or prepared herself significantly. But you get the idea. Social interactionists keep their focus on interaction, while functionalists and conflict theorists focus on structures. As you read and watch the assigned materials this week, if there's anything you don't understand, be sure to let me know.